Soldiers in the Mekong Delta didn't have life straws. They had something better, something that worked in 3 minutes flat, and the water filtration industry has spent decades making sure you'd never hear about it. The Vietnam War produced some of the most brutal, creative survival knowledge in modern military history. Men were operating for weeks in terrain that was essentially one giant contaminated waterway. Rice paddies flooded with human waste, river deltas thick with cholera, stagnant swamp water that could kill you faster than the enemy could. And they drank it. They had to. And most of them survived. Not because of high-tech filtration systems, because of a technique so simple, so cheap, and so effective that it made $100 survival gear look embarrassing by comparison. That technique still works. And today, you're going to learn exactly what it is. Most people have no idea how fast contaminated water can kill you. And the companies selling you $80 filters are counting on that fear. Giardia can hit within 24 hours. Cholera can be fatal in a matter of days. Dysentery has ended more military campaigns throughout history than bullets ever did. So when manufacturers tell you the only safe option is their multi-stage, replaceable cartridge, batteries-required filtration system, you have to wonder, who benefits from that message? The global water purification market is worth over $45 billion annually. That number depends on you believing that clean water requires complex technology. It depends on you never looking backward, never asking how human beings survived for thousands of years without a single plastic filter cartridge. Because the moment you ask that question, you start finding answers that don't require a credit card. Here's the part that should make you angry. This technique was documented in U.S. Army field manuals as far back as 1957. Specifically in the FM 2176 survival guides distributed to troops during the early Cold War era. Detailed, step by step, proven in the field. And then, in later editions printed through the 1980s and 1990s, those specific sections became vague, generalized, replaced with references to commercial purification tablets and modern filtration equipment. Why would a military survival manual get less specific over time? That's worth sitting with for a moment. Vietnamese locals had been using variations of this method for generations before American soldiers arrived. It draws on principles that field medics in World War I already understood. The science isn't complicated. In fact, the simplicity is precisely why it was taught to soldiers who might find themselves with nothing but the jungle around them. You can't carry a filtration system when you're evading capture. You can carry knowledge. What was removed from those manuals wasn't removed because the technique stopped working. It was removed during the same decade that the modern outdoor gear industry exploded into a multi-billion-dollar market. Draw your own conclusions about the timing. Here's how it actually works. And you need 3 things, all of which you can source from nature or a hardware store for under $2. First, you need activated charcoal, not lighter fluid charcoal from a barbecue bag. Actual activated charcoal, which you can buy for about $1.50 at any aquarium supply or health store, or make yourself by burning hardwood and smothering the coals. Second, you need a container with a small drainage hole. A plastic bottle, a cut bamboo section, even a hollowed piece of wood works in a field situation. Third, you need layering material, sand, small gravel, and either dried grass or cloth to act as a pre-filter. That's the whole supply list. The science behind it is called adsorption, different from absorption. Activated charcoal doesn't just soak up contaminants, it chemically binds them at the molecular level. It's the same mechanism used in hospital emergency rooms to treat poisoning. It neutralizes bacteria, strips out heavy metals, eliminates the compounds that cause odor and discoloration. Military field studies conducted in the 1960s found that a properly constructed charcoal column could reduce bacterial contamination by over 99% when combined with a boiling step, which takes your 3-minute window up to about 10 minutes total if you want belt and suspender certainty. Let me walk you through this exactly as it was taught to Special Forces units operating in the wetlands of Southeast Asia. You build your filter column in layers inside your container. Start from the bottom with your drainage layer. Small stones, about 2 inches thick. Then a layer of coarse sand, another 2 inches. Then your activated charcoal, packed in as densely as you can manage, at least 3 to 4 inches. Then fine sand on top, another 2 inches. Cap the top loosely with cloth or dried grass to catch large debris before the water even enters the column. Now pour your source water, and this part matters, slowly. You're not forcing it through. Gravity does the work. As the water passes through each layer, larger particles are trapped by the grass and sand. Then the fine sand removes smaller sediment. The charcoal layer is where the real work happens. Pathogens bind to the carbon surface. Chemical contaminants are neutralized. What comes out the drainage hole at the bottom is dramatically cleaner than what went in at the top. In testing conditions, first pass water through a column like this runs visually clear within 60 to 90 seconds of starting the pour. 3 minutes of collection gives you enough drinking water for immediate survival needs. For absolute safety in a true emergency, especially with swamp or stagnant water, boil the collected output for 1 minute if you have any means of heat. That combination, charcoal filtration plus boiling, is what the original field manuals described as the gold standard for field water treatment in austere environments. Either step alone dramatically reduces risk. Both steps together bring you as close to safe as field conditions allow. Before you try this, there are 3 things you need to understand. 1. This method addresses biological and chemical contamination, but it does not remove radioactive compounds or certain industrial solvents. In a wilderness or disaster survival scenario, you're unlikely to encounter those. In an urban emergency near industrial sites, be aware of that limitation. 2. The charcoal column loses effectiveness over time. In a sustained emergency, rebuild your filter every 2 to 3 days or when output water starts showing color or odor again. 3. Pre-filter visibly turbid water through cloth before running it through your column. Extremely silty water will clog your layers faster and reduce throughput. A simple bandana pre-filter extends the life of your system significantly. The point is, you have options. You are not dependent on a supply chain, a battery, or a store shelf to access clean water. That's a position of real power. A 3-minute technique that kept American soldiers alive in some of the most bacteria-saturated water on Earth. And it costs almost nothing. That knowledge existed, it was taught. And somewhere along the way, it got buried under a mountain of branded gear and replacement cartridge subscription services. Do 2 things. First, build one of these, tonight or this weekend. Use clean tap water the first time so you can see exactly how the layers work and what the output looks like. Get comfortable with it before you ever need it for real. Second, share this with someone. A family member, a neighbor, anyone you'd want to have this knowledge in a genuine emergency. Not because you need the views, but because this kind of practical knowledge only stays alive when people pass it forward. This channel exists to recover exactly this kind of information. Techniques that worked, that were documented, that were quietly sidelined by market forces, and that still work just as well today as they did in 1968. If it's the kind of thing you want more of, you know what to do. Clean water isn't a luxury, it never was, and the knowledge to find it was never supposed to belong only to the people who could afford the gear.